Now let's go ahead and create something that does not yet exist in this comp. We're going to add a frozen lake with a reflection of the mountains. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up a little bit to find that image. Let me see if I can find the piece of ice here, this one. And I'm going to make sure that, of course, it's at the topmost of the stacks that we have actually visible. And we do have that one visible. So I'm going to take this particular layer and I'm going to scale it down. So once again, I'm going to grab my command and control and I'm going to scale it down like right about here. I'm also going to extend it past the viewable area just so I can have a little bit more control. Hit enter to accept that. Now, of course, that's pretty straight for a lake. I'm going to go ahead and add a layer mask and we're going to roughen that up just a little bit. So I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to get a soft brush and I'm going to just go ahead and start to, take some of this edge off. Actually going to go to a much more strong brush, but going to a darker grayscale just to make this a little bit more irregular. And what I'm doing is I'm not going straight like this. I'm going more like up and down and trying to vary my stroke, just so I can make this look like it belongs here. And it's a nice little layer of mist, actually, that we get from this particular image. I'm just going to do like this. All right, we can always come back and clean this up more and hide that edge even further by then going darker and darker with the brush and just cleaning that up. Look how nice that looks so far. All right, pretty good. So what I want to do at this point is I want to make a duplicate of this layer here, right? The landscape. I'm going to once again drag it to the make new layer icon. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually name this so I don't confuse myself because I do that all the time. I'm going to call it reflection. And after a while, guys, you are going to want to start to name some of your layers so that you don't get lost because there's so many different versions now of this mountain range. I'm going to actually clean mine up a little later on and start naming these. So I'm going to take this reflection. I'm going to drag it above the lake that we just created. And I'm going to scale this down as well. I'm also going to flip it upside down. So I'm going to take this guy here, flip it like this, and then move it into position above the lake, like so. And I'm going to just see where the lake begins. I'll stretch this out a little further, like this. And you know what we're going to do? Exactly, we're going to make a layer mask, and we're going to paint away what we don't need. So I'm going to grab a big brush, and we're going to paint away those portions that we don't want so that we have the reflection above the lake. Now, of course, this is way, way too strong. So we're going to drop the opacity down on our lake layer. So we're going to go to the lake and we're going to hit the opacity. We just want to get a reflection, a slight reflection. This is some thick ice. So if we turn it all the way off, you see we don't see it at all. And now we can slowly but surely bring that reflection in. And we can see the mountain range now reflected upside down in a sheet of ice. This is a technique I use all the time for mirrors or anything that has a reflective surface, especially when I want to see that object. It's a great technique to flip that layer and drop the opacity down. Of course, you can experiment with some of the blend modes if you want to, but normal typically works for me quite well. All right. Now, you can also dial down the saturation because it's very blue, and it wouldn't be that blue, I don't think, with the blue here. So we're going to add an adjustment layer. We're going to go to hue saturation, and we're going to do that little trick I showed you guys earlier where we're going to make sure that it only locks onto this layer. And now I'm going to drop the saturation down of the mountains. Now, of course, you would think that nobody would be paying attention to this stuff. And that's the point. We want to make our comp look like it was shot this way, all right? So that it's indistinguishable. And it's those little subtleties that really sell the shot, all right? So if we go back to what it used to look like, we can go ahead and, find this original image here. Let me turn some of these layers off. This is what we started with, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and hide the clouds. So we started off with this here. All right. And then we started to slowly but surely change the entire scope and feel by adding different layers, hiding things, showing things, reflecting things. But of course, we're not done yet. What I want to do is I want to now add that foreground element. So I'm going to play around with the leaves. And we're going to talk about this in the next lesson. And we're going to actually put this in its own document so we can just focus on separating out the blue from the branches.